Yeah, so today having my boy Marshall Long on
Back
the
for
show.
episode 5, baby.
Right, yeah, number 5. Top 5, dude.
Hey, listen.
Would have been number 1, but we can't get him in
Marshall,
here.
I think I have a story with you. I think if I remember correctly from Empower last year, it could be you. I think I emailed you and I was like, hey, what do you want to talk about at Empower? And you were like, I can literally talk about fucking anything in Bitcoin mining. And I was like, fuck, I love this guy's energy.
That's about...
I remember that email very clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So what did you end up talking about at Empower?
Well, at Empower, I told Steve Barber to get on stage and tell me why immersion cooling was bad. Put him in the dirt. Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Better leave my boy Barber alone.
I was like, how did Steve get on stage?
Yeah.
Steve's the homie, man. Yeah, great event, by the way. How did this year go?
Thank you.
It's called Fuse, right?
Yeah, Fuse was the second big event for the year. Went really well. Not focused on the Bitcoin side at all, but just mostly on energy and gearing up for Empower 23 right now.
Nice, man.
It's going
Awesome.
to be a good time.
Yeah, so you're going to have to talk of that too.
Hey, listen, H-Town, hold it down. That's all I know.
Nice. I knew he's going to be good when we get him on. So, dude, we've asked everybody every time they come in, kind of give their background, like how they got into it and all that. And you have more extensive background than basically everybody that we're going to talk to probably in the entire time this show will run. But so, yeah, tell us your background and how you got into it.
Yeah,
I've
sure.
already heard this, so... But I want
This
to
is all news to
try
me,
not
so-
to bore you. All right?
You can never bore me, Marshall.
Listen,
The
that's
more
a
I've gotten
challenge.
to know you, the more I'm like, I like him, but I'm always worried he's gonna like try to put me in my place. He's one of those dudes, you know.
I gotta keep people on their toes.
He does. He's
But the
one of
best part
funniest guys,
is when
though.
people know more about something than
Uh-huh.
I do, I hope that they reciprocate
Yeah,
that. The problem
yeah.
is a lot of people don't. Like if I'm talking out of my ass, just tell me. Like, dude, you don't know anything. Like, stop talking.
No, man, he's one of the sharpest dudes. This is gonna be a good one. So, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so it started mining in 2010. At the time, I was a structural design engineer for a paint spray booth company, building like enclosures and stuff for people to finish cars and stuff. And then I moved out of that into building like websites and apps and stuff like that with a friend. And late 2010, actually November 21st or something, 2010, we were at lunch and he goes, man, I found this like nerd money that you can make with your computer. I was like, what? That sounds crazy. So he got me interested from like a purely technological standpoint. Don't have an economics background. It came from the dirt, eating milk with a cereal so you can eating cereal with a fork so you can save the milk type situation.
Oh yeah. You from Missouri?
Okay, take it easy. All right, 10th generation Texan.
All
How
right,
dare you?
All right.
How dare you?
My bad. 10th generation.
Hey, listen, show me state. Let me show you, okay? Listen here, brother.
You beat Griffin. Griffin was a seventh generation.
I barely got him. So my family started in Texas just after it got incorporated into the U.S.
Wow.
But yeah, so was interested from a technical standpoint, nothing else. And then slowly was like, oh, this is interesting. And I, again, had no vision. Anybody that tells you they knew Bitcoin was going to be big is a liar.
Right.
Because they would have leveraged their mom's house. They would have piled in.
They wouldn't have spent $10,000 or 10,000 Bitcoin on a couple pizzas.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Which that happened.
Yeah, Laszlo, shout out. So I immediately tore apart my computer, sat in my floor. There was no like YouTube or anything to learn how to do this stuff. And my wife comes home, she's like, what are you doing? And then I was like, as Bitcoin started to kind of creep up past a nickel dime to $1, $5, I was like, oh, this is cool. I can like use Bitcoin to pay off computers. And I would like go to Craigslist and buy gaming computers and then mine Bitcoin to make money to buy more gaming computers. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. I have free gaming computers. Like that was the extent of what I thought Bitcoin could be.
Yeah.
And then you get into, 2011, 2012, started realizing that it was something more. Narrowly avoided Mt. Gox due to my own laziness, which is great. The onboarding process back then was super painful. You had to like send money to this ghetto PayPal called Dawala, and they had to like verify your account, and then you had to go into Mt. Gox and do all this stuff. And by the time I had like registered my account, FinCEN closed their Dawala account, and I was like, well, this is probably not where I want to do anything with Bitcoin. So I was just kind of lost in the sauce for a bit, doing absolutely nothing but just mining Bitcoin and trying to like convince people to take it as like a favor. So I had a friend, a Houston guy, Asher. You guys might know Asher from Satoshi Energy. He calls me one day. He's like, "Hey man, like let's do some gig work for Bitcoin." I was like, "Okay, cool. How about you take these 40 Bitcoin and like deliver groceries or something?" He's like, "Okay, sick." And so like that was the extent of my Bitcoin during the early days. So it's like, let's do this. And then ASICs came out after graphics cards had a short phase. And ASICs was like, that's where I really got interested. Bitcoin started to run up, started deploying large amounts of hash rate. And back then, a new ASIC would come out like every 3 months. So a brand new iteration that was miles better than the one before. It was a for real arms race. And so this was like, call everybody. We're sleeping on the data center floor, rack and stack. Let's get going. And this was around the time where I started meeting more people, 2013, 14. Started going to conferences, linking up with people. And so in my time in Bitcoin, I've made a lot of mistakes, met a lot of dirtbags, but met a lot of really great, cool people. I mean, that's what brought you and I together, and you and I, Jake. So Bitcoin's been a fickle mistress, but has been great at the same time.
That is true, man. We've talked about that before with like some of my best friends now are people I've met in the space, and the like-mindedness between so many people that are in it. Like there's just a lot of similarities in philosophy, and like there's also like the beef stuff, which you actually are involved as well. Like I've noticed that. I'm like, Bitcoin
I've got so many
beef.
questions about the beef because the same.
Well, let's go there.
Let's go to
let's go to
the beef.
He's got some of that going on.
I was looking at Amanda Cavallari's ski thing that she's got in, I think it's Wyoming, right? And I was like, okay, well, I missed last year.
You went
Want to go this year?
No, I didn't get invited.
Oh,
it's whole nother
you're not cool enough.
I'm not cool enough. I didn't.
You could totally come. Trust me. But like one of the whole things is like this beefsteak thing, and then I can't remember Christine that we talked to at lunch.
Right.
She was talking about beef. I was like, hey, we have our own cattle, so like kind of like I source my own beef that way. That's great. So what's this whole beef tie-in?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if there's actually any correlation. I could tell you
everybody in the space loves steak.
Yeah, so the tie-in is like this like proof of work, proof of stake, like meme, and that's kind of I think that's where beefsteak started. I've never been to one. But that's what people have told me that's about. For me personally, we just have a family farm with a few hundred head of cattle that we use to like feed our community. And then when the beef prices started going through the roof, I get calls from like Matt Lostro and some of the guys at Lancium. They're like, hey, you've been posting pictures and videos of like your cattle. Can we like buy beef from you? Which I've never done before. It's just like in a freezer at my sister's house. Yeah. The community knows if they want to buy beef, open it up and leave $3.50 a pound in the jar. Like that's the extent.
You're trying to mark it up on me, man.
I had to.
It's cool. I don't so
inflation. That's when the price of everything going up. And I called her. I was like, feed hasn't gone up, right? Like water hasn't gone up. What's the deal? She's like, yeah, people are getting gouged. And I was like, well, I don't really know how to deliver beef. She's like, I don't either, but I got a generator and I got a freezer that I'll stick on the flatbed and I'll bring you a truckload. And I was like, I can't have a whole cow. Like I don't have enough place for that. And so we sold a half cow to Matt Lostro and a half cow to Michael from Lancium. And that is the extent of the business that I have had in beef. It's usually just been like, we're hungry, go get a cow. That's it.
Yeah, I get it. But I think too, it's something to do with the like sovereignty aspect, like all the
self-sustaining. You don't rely on anybody else. It's kind of the nature of Bitcoin. It's a double-edged sword because if you
out
mess
middleman.
it up, exactly.
If that's the case, though, I mean, have you seen the guys on Netflix that like live totally off grid? You know, it's
I'm
like with
jealous,
some of them got like the Coke bottles like in the walls and stuff, and it creates like this little fucking terrarium or something for humans. Like it's like you don't even need like AC or heat or whatever. It just like it perfectly like it regulates. Maybe there's a geothermal aspect to it.
Like
I don't know,
it in the
but
ground
like
or something.
Yeah, like there's an entire show about people who live off grid on Netflix.
I'm gonna have to watch it.
That sounds awesome. I just need really fast internet though.
And
power that never goes off.
That's true.
Yeah.
And a lot of power.
I'm just curious how far down the sovereignty route do some of the maxis go?
I don't know. I mean, I do feel like there's
there are
big
people
push.
who do not get their kids' social security numbers.
Oh yeah,
wow.
No, 100%.
That's a thing.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you avoid that?
I think there's a whole.
I guess you just never filed the paperwork.
Well, so I tried, and I was told, "Stop being a bitch. Sign these papers." I'm like, okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, I mean, I do. I think there is a whole movement of like people really just kind of rejecting the kind of lifestyle that has been established and wanting to get off grid and away from that. My grandparents from Missouri. I was just up there last week, and they were telling me about their neighbor who he doesn't have a social security number. He won't get married by the government, like to his wife.
How does she feel about that?
Well, he tried to go do it at the church, and apparently the church wouldn't marry him unless he had a marriage license, which I'm like, wait. I actually had a problem with the church then, because it's like, we got separation of churches. You know what I mean? But I don't want to sound like a crazy person, but yeah, there is a whole...
We're in Bitcoin. We're in
Bitcoin. We're a little crazy already. So, but there is a whole movement, I think, of that
absolutely
going on. But yeah, so one thing I wanted to talk to him about for sure was the Africa stuff. Well, actually, first, let's tell you, what are you at right now? You're at Rhodium.
Yeah, so right now I'm a VP of Innovation at Rhodium.
So what does that mean?
Rhodium mining, we do immersion mining at scale. I think we might be one or two, top 5 largest immersion miners in the world. We currently run in across 2 sites. We've got one site that's 125 megawatts. We've got one site that's 225 megawatts.
Those both in Texas?
Yep. Okay. Yep. And we're stacking hash and slapping ass, you know?
That's what they do, man.
Love it.
Just killing it.
So what do you do? Like, so VP of Innovation, what does that mean?
That's just a fancy word for saying, like, make sure we can drive the bus around the potholes that you've seen before. That's it. Just because when you've been in the space, the cycles are all identical. It's just the amplitude of those cycles seems to ebb and flow with how much money there is sloshing around. So, you know, my first big hurtful bear market was 2014. I learned a ton of what not to do. And so...
what was your biggest takeaway from 2014?
The person who builds the greatest chicken shack data center wins. So I wanted like some kind of crazy cool place. It's got like air conditioning and all this stuff. You do not do that. Because when the price goes from $1,200 to $180, you can't pay your power bill anymore.
Yeah. So just stay as scrappy as possible.
Absolutely. As lean as possible at all times is the greatest. A lot of people, because there's so much Wall Street influence now, a lot of people want to be, you know, the hot guy on the beach showing his abs. You really need to be Jon Snow, who's screaming, winter's coming, winter's coming all the time.
Right.
You might not make as much in a bull market, but you'll make it all back in the bear market when they all get rinsed out.
Right. What back then, like what was the hash price back then?
I don't even know what hash price was. I mean, that's a Luxor like coin term now. But the biggest rigs on the market at that time were like probably 100 gigahash machines for like those were like the new hotness coming out from like KNC, which you guys might not even know anymore.
No,
it's a Swedish ASIC manufacturer that went bust. I remember when the first like 1 terahash box came out, it was huge. And I was like, dude, this is sick. This is 1 terahash. So, you know, and graphics cards were doing kilohashes a second at that time. And back then, like if you had 1 petahash, you were a baller.
Really?
Oh,
really?
Yeah. If you had 2 to 5 megawatts running of ASICs, like you were unstoppable.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I remember the first time I ever went to see a 20 megawatt deployment in China. I was like, these guys are insane. It was, and still like 20 megawatts is a lot of power to have in one place.
Yeah.
And now we're at hundreds and hundreds of megawatts. It's insane.
It is crazy.
I love it. It's great.
He also speaks Chinese.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I haven't figured out if he's just making noises, but I think he does. We met with some folks and I was like, wow, he actually was talking to these people. So yeah. I was impressed.
Yeah, it's
this guy's got all kinds of
We
stuff.
got to take him to China with us.
He's got to take us to China with him.
To China with me.
I don't trust.
I love China.
I'm kind of sketched out by China, but
you
know your way around.
You will love China if you go to China having the expectation that it is exactly what you think it is. And if you know that, you can navigate China effectively.
Really?
Everything you think to be true about China, if you go there thinking that, you're going to have a great time.
Because you're just kind of like, you're ready for it.
Yeah.
And it's accurate.
China turns out to be like a really cool place. And it's about my experience in China specifically, it has been very interesting. First time I went to China was 2013. Place I went was Wuhan, surprisingly enough.
Yeah.
And my entry into China was like very, like Wuhan is not like a place where you should go for your first time. It is very central China. Not a lot of foreigners go there. And when I pull up in my taxi cab, the taxi guy, I didn't speak any Chinese. He was just saying like, go down that road, like walk down that road. And I was like, It's in pitch black. It's like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you just drive there. And he's like, no, I can't. I'm like, okay. So I just walk for like 2 miles down this road, and there's a giant building on fire, which is like not a common thing in China. Like China runs pretty smoothly. And there's just like people running around crazy. And I'm like, what is going
What
on?
am I
I'm like
doing
trying to
here?
call my buddy who's supposed to like meet me. He's not picking up the phone. And I'm just standing there. Surrounded by people who are panicked, and there's a building on fire. And I was like, all right, sick. So from there, to see the culture change from 2013 to now has really been fascinating to see. And I don't think I'm the only one who thinks this, but China used to be like a very, what I would compare Boston, where everybody's like very focused on themselves, like work, grind. And so there's not a lot of like caring about other people and what they do day to day. And having been to China so many times and seeing that progress over the years, a lot of places in China are a lot more like caring and friendly. It's a really cool place.
What do you think that's due to?
I don't know, man. Like the maybe it's propaganda. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know, but China is uniquely Chinese, and I wouldn't say like Western influence or anything like that has caused that, but it has. I've seen a marked difference of the culture in China now versus back then, and it's really cool to see an economy like develop around that.
Do you think it's just like that booming middle class that they have now,
Yeah.
with like millions and millions,
Yeah.
maybe probably tens of millions,
people
if not
coming
more,
from outside in, bringing their own ideals, more family centric. Yeah, China's a great place. I love China. Yeah,
That's interesting. I would like to go at some point.
yeah, absolutely.
Check it out.
Go see some mines.
Uh-huh.
There used to be mines. Definitely,
Yeah.
there's definitely no mines in China right
mines
now.
Yeah,
Definitely.
at all.
Never.
I'm sure there's not. Just like you lost your Bitcoin wallet in the ocean. You lost it on the flight over there or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that.
Absolutely.
I remember hearing about that.
Devastating.
Yeah, all of it. It's all gone.
Yep.
Speaking of mines, international mines, your Africa stuff. That's what I wanted to talk about too, because I like to talk about the
Energizing of Bitcoin.
right. The energizing of Bitcoin. Wow, nice plug right there.
Yeah.
Dude. But also like the grid aspect of it, and bringing power to places that don't have it now, and like the whole concept of what Bitcoin mining can do for developing areas. And we're spoiled here. Most places have plenty of access to cheap power, really probably cheaper than most places in the world. Most places, not all, but yeah, we've gotten spoiled here. But there's a lot of other places, and where you just went, I think it was Kenya, right? Using Bitcoin mining to kind of develop grid infrastructure for places like that, like El Salvador too, and a lot of other places. So you're actually doing some of that and can put, a story to that rhetoric instead of it just being rhetoric. You can like, you've got real world examples of you guys doing it right now. So,
yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, preface this conversation with the fact that you can go and turn on a light switch and the lights come on every time is a miracle of modern science.
It is. We take it for granted.
It's crazy. For the past 2 years, I've really focused on like studying grids and how they work and all this stuff. It is mind-numbingly more complicated than I could have ever imagined. The contracts behind it, and how the settlements work, and interconnection, and all this stuff. It is an insane feat that you can turn on the light and the lights come on.
Yeah.
So, for a lot of parts of the world, that's not the case. And Africa specifically, I've only been to Africa once, and I only went to Kenya. But I went down there to see a company called Gridless. They just made a bunch of news headlines. Jack Dorsey invested in them, and a bunch of other Bitcoin VCs. But long story short, Gridless is a company that focuses on what I call a win-win-win business model. Look, I've tried to run nonprofits. I've tried to run charities, all this kind of stuff. The problem that you have there is that you're only as good as your donors' willingness to give you money. It's not really a sustainable business model if you think about it, right? So what Gridless has done is found a way to make a win-win-win scenario. So in Kenya, I'm not going to speak about Africa. I think Africa broadly, the issue is the same, where if you're in a big city, you get your power from probably a government subsidized company. But most people don't live in a big city. And so they're buying power from local generators. So the guy who shoved a turbine in the river behind your house, that's who you buy power from generally. So these guys might have a 50 kilowatt turbine. These guys might have a 2 megawatt turbine, whatever, that they're running the distribution to your house and you pay them a power bill.
Are they just running? I mean, is this just like cables like you'd see at an event or something?
So it depends. So for the larger deployments, it's a little bit more. They also own their own transmission, so they're short transmissions, but it could be some kind of ghetto rig transmission from a turbine. It just depends on the scale and how many people they serve and the maintenance opportunity cost, right?
Mhm.
So the
And
guy,
I'm guessing the reliability of it is suspect.
well, it depends. So in Kenya specifically, they have a ton of hydro. So the power is relatively stable if the person who built the turbine sized it for the dry season.
Okay.
So, if they sized it right, the power is going to be pretty constant.
Mhm.
But the problem is that because they can't build at scale, like they're not building 50 megawatt turbines because there's not enough people in the village to sell that power to.
Mhm.
So they're building 50 kilowatts or 500 kilowatts or 2 megawatts. So they're not able to get really big economies of scale. So they have to charge a little bit more for the power. Because they charge more for the power, the community doesn't use it that much. So they use it from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. to charge their phone, turn on the lights.
Man.
They're not even using it for cooking. They're cooking with like paraffin and kerosene. So there's a huge issue with like infant mortality because they breathe in all the kerosene fumes and stuff. And because they don't use a lot of power, they have to charge more. And because they're not using it, like it's a whole catch-22 with this local generator. Compound that with there is no interconnection across their jurisdiction. They have no real-time market to sell the off-peak hours to. And so because you have no real-time settlement market, there's no grid for you to sell into because people are only doing it for 4 hours a day.
There's no point in building it out. You can't get capital for it.
And so that's the bigger problem that those guys have is funding new projects. So there's this whole vicious cycle where people are having to pay like 70 or 80 or 90 cents a kilowatt hour. And there's a lot of people trying to solve this problem with like mini grids. So that setup is called a mini grid. And a mini grid is just you running power to local communities. So maybe you serve 1,000, 500 people, whatever. There's some NGOs that are trying to do like, oh, we'll give you a solar panel and there's these credits and all this. I think all that's too complicated. What Gridless does specifically very well is they act as a synthetic real-time market. So they co-locate the machines in the turbine house on top of the generator. They work out a deal with the generator. They do a revenue share. And then the generator is able to monetize off hours. The miners will curtail when it's time to use the power. So I think Gridless's first site, they turn off at 5:30 and turn back on at 10:30. And so the generator is now monetizing off hours as a revenue share basis with Gridless. And then the generator in turn can drop power prices for the community because they're able to overnight make 6x more money with their power. And then because they drop the price, the community then is now incentivized to use things like hot plates to cook their food. And they've done a case study. And over the past 6 months that they did their first pilot with, they've been able to drop the power price several orders of magnitude. So from 90 cents, I think, to like 15 cents. In fact, they had such a problem that Kenya Power was like, hey, you guys are actually charging less than us.
Oh, really?
So they actually are doing like this rebate thing where they'll charge them whatever Kenya Power wants and they'll give them a rebate at the end of the day.
Okay.
So now you can like, there was a guy who a friend of mine, Obi, did an interview with while we were there who said that he's able to irrigate his crops more so his cows can eat more because it doesn't cost as much to water the fields. And so his cows are producing way more milk and he's actually made 4x more money just from that.
See, those are the kind of things that like,
we got to go out there, dude.
Yes,
absolutely.
We do.
So they're making money. The Gridless is making money mining Bitcoin. The generator is making money doing a rev share with them, and the community's saving money. And because they're saving money, they're making more money. It is the perfect business arrangement. Now, past that, there's all kinds of things that I'm personally interested in, like the financing. So if you can like finance a turbine set and know that they're going to have an off-taker with a Bitcoin miner, or maybe I just run my own Bitcoin miners there, I can pay my own loan back. Yeah, basically.
But in that's a good point though too. In places like that, because I've been telling a lot of people this lately, is we need to pitch these as infrastructure plays and not like Bitcoin mining necessarily.
Who cares if it's Bitcoin mining?
Right, it doesn't matter. Yeah. This is an infrastructure play, and like getting a turbine, that's a hard asset that you can finance off of for like a lot cheaper money, a lot cheaper capital than trying to get a loan against your mining equipment. And we've seen what happens when you do that. It goes back to your like chicken coop kind of setup. You know what I mean? Like, don't be leveraging your machines all over the place, and they're not going to hold their value when you go through these times. So But that is, when you told me about that when you came back, that's like exactly the story that more people need to talk about, because it's real world examples of like how powerful. And I don't want to sound, I hate sounding like a hyperbolic kind of crazy person, but that's real life examples of like real problem solving. The Bitcoin mining, there's nothing else like it that it can do to solve these type of issues. Right. And I don't know, man.
Bringing prosperity to 500 to 1,000 people by simply installing that is
it's
nuts.
a big deal, man. And the other interesting part is too, there's other, so that's like in the disparate population, and in the States, there's all kinds of other things. So we talked to a big power company that has like frequency regulation problems. And I was
what kind?
Frequency regulation problems.
Yeah.
Where like their turbine maybe has issues and they can't react fast enough to like spin it slower or whatever. You just shove that power to miners. They don't care. They'll eat it up, and then they'll help you by modulating your frequency. And that kind of gets lost on a lot of people. A lot of these like ESG woke type people who are like, well, it doesn't really matter. There's other things in place. But when you tell the story about how it's directly impacting without like grid healing, I think it's lost on a lot of people.
Yeah.
Stranded assets, flare gas stuff, I think a lot of people don't understand or don't care.
Right.
But when you say like, no, these like 5 kids didn't die because of Bitcoin mining, it's like it's much more like impactful, I think.
Yeah. So. I agree, man. I agree. And I think that there's, if we can highlight stuff like that, like we need to get Mackenzie Sigalos to do a story on that.
Oh yeah, I messaged her yesterday.
You did?
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, because it's such a good, powerful story for the whole narrative and rhetoric that is, I hate even calling it rhetoric, but that's what it is. And
absolutely.
So it just bolsters it. But
yeah, I think we get a crew and go shoot some content down there.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, I'll link you guys.
Fun with that.
They're awesome.
You gotta go too.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a blast.
Then we're going to El Salvador.
Yes, we're gonna go to El Salvador. We're gonna
let's talk about El
to the
Salvador.
moon.
Yeah, let's talk about El Salvador.
You and I have polarizing
I love El Salvador.
You are about it.
I love it. I love the people.
When
man.
I met this dude down there, he was like, "I'm moving, dude.
I'm moving."
So you were both in El Salvador.
So we were there. To El Salvador. That's where we first met.
What was
in person?
What's the premise? What was the point of the trip?
I don't know. What was it? I ended up going surfing and hanging out. So.
I think his purpose was
a vacation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So a long time ago, maybe like 2 years ago, when they made their first big announcement, El Salvador did, the ambassador's office contacted us through some of our investors, and they were like, "Hey, we'd really like to learn a little bit more about like what mining is, et cetera, et cetera." So they came to our site. Met the ambassador, really cool people. We met Mardo. Mardo's in town. I don't know if
yeah. We're having dinner this weekend.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Oh, I'm going to come to your office. I heard it's awesome." So we'll get Mardo in there. And so we just kind of engaged that way. And over the year, they were, picking our brains about ideas and whatnot. And they were like, "You need to come. You should come. You should come." And I was like, no, I'm too busy, whatever. So I went because I had time and I felt I owed that to them. And just to kind of like see what it's about. And as a hardcore Bitcoiner myself, I wanted to be able to spend Bitcoin in a country that sees Bitcoin as a currency. So for me, it was a bit of hey, thanks for being cool, El Salvador, and like exploring everything about it and seeing how mining could kind of play a role. I think JB and Gideon were there just to kind of like kick it and hang out.
we did end up meeting with the folks. We want to get some mining stuff going down there, but mainly for the grid infrastructure. Kind of. Build out and bring them kind of reliable power and stable power. And I think there's an aspect to a place like El Salvador that they took the chance on making like a bold move for Bitcoin, well, for themselves, but utilizing Bitcoin. And I want to see it succeed. I think it's an
important experiment. Right. Where I kind of get sidetracked is I don't pretend to know about like Central America political issues. I have some El Salvadorian investors who like went through all the crazy guerrilla stuff and told me crazy stories.
Oh man, so insane stories.
I don't pretend to know the issues that those people have, but here's what I do know. For better or worse, Bitcoin in El Salvador is a cake you cannot unbake. And it doesn't matter who's the president, who's not the president. The people there have been exposed. Some people will never go back to anything but that. I've seen people who don't know anything about money who have changed their lives with Bitcoin. And that is good enough. If that's all it ever was, that's good enough, in my opinion. I think there's potential for it to be even more incredible, but regardless of what people's thoughts on the political environment there, it is a cake you cannot unbake.
I agree. The way I look at it too, though, is that again, they have taken the chance to do this, and like we need it to succeed as a community, and we need it to be kind of
why?
Because it's going to further adoption. Like if it succeeds there, the trickle down effect on other countries that are in similar situations, like it's going to be the key to pushing them to make the same kind of move. And in the reality, when you look at it, and I heard Bukele talk about this when he was on Tucker Carlson, and it's literally the same argument I've used, is that from their perspective, when you get hit with, I mean, they were solely relying on the dollar.
Yeah.
So when you get hit with the inflation that we feel too, we're having a record inflation, and it's the worst in 40 some years, even though it was a little bit better yesterday when a report came out.
We at least have, print? I didn't look.
It was like 7.1.
Oh, nice.
I know, and it's like, oh yeah,
it's coming
awesome.
down.
Yeah. It's like, good Lord, man, this is not good still. But whatever. I mean, at least it's better than expected. But over there, they get hit with inflation, but they don't get the benefit of those dollars staying in their economy.
That's right.
And so it's like double the effect that we feel here is like, 80, 90+% of that money is at least staying here and circulating within our economy.
Financial colonialism
it's
is
insane.
what I call it. So I recently learned about, there's a similar thing in Africa called, the abbreviation is CFA. It's something franc. It's basically French,
I like
financial, French colonial,
French.
like monetary policy, where there's like a whole cabal of people that in France are enforcing some African republics. I think there's 9 or 10 of them to use this CFA mechanism where they control the monetary system. It is fucked up. It is like monetary slavery to a point. Like it is really bad. So I think, but I disagree. I don't think Bitcoin needs it. I don't think we need it. I think they need Bitcoin.
Right, I agree, but I want to see other countries that are in similar situations, make that jump because it makes sense.
But
it literally
it's
makes
a
sense.
hard road
it's a hard road,
and
that's why I care about them. I want to see them succeed. And
well, they ripped the Band-Aid off, gave 2 middle fingers to the IMF and the World Bank, and they're like, "Suck it."
Yeah,
it was awesome.
It took some balls, man.
Absolutely. So I heard I was at a private weird banker conference, don't judge me, at JP Morgan, and maybe a year ago. And the director of the IMF was there, and they were like, are there any questions? And I was like, and the lady who invited me was the MC, and she was like, we're not going to take his question. And they took another Bitcoiner's question, and he asked a similar question, and it was like, what are your thoughts on El Salvador? And his response, Tobias was his name, his response was, El Salvador took one step too far and will pay dearly. I was like,
wow,
that dude just said that out loud.
Yeah. Just think what they say behind closed doors.
This was closed doors, like no cameras, none of that. And I was like, wait, what? And then they started talking about CBDCs, and these words came out of a director of the IMS mouth. He said, I like CBDCs because if I don't like what you say, I can turn your money off. And I was like, holy shit, they're saying the quiet part out loud.
Yes, yeah.
It's like a big problem, dude. These are some evil dudes.
This is a great segue. Let's dive into this because actually it was at my mom's birthday. My stepdad was asking me about it, and I was like, honestly, I haven't paid enough attention to it. So what are they first and foremost, and let's get everybody's thoughts.
A CBDC?
Yeah.
So a CBDC is a central bank digital currency. Effectively, as I understand it, and there's a few permutations of this, but
digital dollar.
It's a digital dollar. It's a dollar that you get on your phone that the government can send you. It's imagine like an app that the government says, hey, download this and we'll give you $100. Now, what they say is good for are things like we can put an expiration on a stimulus check where you're forced to spend it or it goes away, which can artificially stimulate the economy, right? And that allows them to blast it out to everybody's phone instead of like putting it in people's banks. Because
is this saying that this is actually backed by an actual dollar, or is this we're just
nothing,
digitally printing?
Yeah, dollars are fake
bullshit
anyway.
Yeah,
like a real dollar it's all fake. It's all made up. Banks are Ponzi schemes run by morons. They're just a bunch of white-haired dudes circle jerking each other into oblivion. Let's just make that known.
This is the microclip I'm pulling.
Yes. This is going to be what we tweet out, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that being said, they are sending their funny money monopoly to your phone, and they can put stipulations on it, right? So it can be a form to accelerate the velocity of money, like how quickly money moves around the ecosystem, which allows them. I'm going to be very not objective here, But in my opinion, it allows them to further perpetuate the Ponzi scheme that they have been perpetuating upon the American population and abroad for over half a century.
How much easier?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Wouldn't immediately, if this like came into existence, wouldn't we just see massive inflation because you're essentially digitally
Absolutely.
printing?
Well, think of how easy it is to print freaking digital currency. You know what I mean?
And the best part is I can take your money and I can use it as a form of direct punishment and slavery against you. It's not a credit score. It's not any of these other made up bullshit things now. It is a direct way to control what you say, how you say. If I don't like it, I bankrupt you with a click of a button. If I don't like who you are, what you say, if you're out of line, I just bankrupt you overnight, or in a way like freeze your assets or money from your phone.
Think about Canada with the whole trucker rally.
Perfect
That's
case.
a perfect example
Perfect
of
case.
it. Yeah. Of
Who's spearheading this? Is it just the banks or is it our government as well?
So
IMF, World Economic Forum.
IMF is like spearheading the
Time
whole
out.
thing.
Let's get our tinfoil hats real quick.
Gets to get it.
Yeah. We're ready.
The IMF has sent guidance to everybody. The EU, he said at that conference, EU is 5 years away. The States is probably a little bit longer because you also have to integrate it into like payment mechanisms, payment gateways. So this isn't something that's going to happen tomorrow, but it's something that people are implementing plans for now, today. So look, at best, it is an easy way for the government to give you money to your phone, right? It is a government-sponsored Cash App, right? It's a government-sponsored Venmo, whatever you want to call it. At best, that's what it is. At worst, and much more probabilistically, it is a direct means to control the population using money as a weapon. Make no mistake about it.
I agree. And the reality is we don't need a CBDC. Like we have Cash App. We have PayPal. We have banks.
Have it.
Right. It's like this. We don't need it. So the only explanation for the reason to get it, in my opinion, is control. That's the only reason.
That's right. You control the money, you control the world, period.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. It's terrifying thinking about, but
Absolutely.
I mean, I think it's a reality. And it's also the reason why Bitcoin is needed is because it is a peer-to-peer.
So that was where my conversation with my stepdad went. Was he was just like, I think something like that passes, and he's like, I think it hurts Bitcoin. I said, I think I disagree with you. I think if anything, it makes the case for why Bitcoin is the solution here.
Well, and I think too, I don't even think Bitcoin has to replace all the other systems. Like I think it is a barometer for your locale and the value of your currency, right? Yeah. And so as CBDCs become common and they start to get implemented, you will see inflation go up because printing dollars right now, there's still an actual physical component of that to some degree.
Yeah, treasury markets.
Right. You're creating a lot of money through debt, but you don't necessarily create a dollar for all those. But yes, right now there's still like a physical component to create dollars. When you get a CBDC, it's like, what is preventing them from printing just whenever they want? It's
you're
easy.
Zimbabwe overnight.
Right. Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Right?
I trust our politicians a lot to make the most responsible decision possible. You know what I mean? They've exemplified that over the last several years.
Why did he say he thought it would hurt Bitcoin? Because it takes away.
He said he was thinking. I think that
the use case.
I could be totally wrong. That it could be. Yeah, it's like maybe you're taking essentially market share from non-sophisticated average Americans, and now they're just going to go use these as opposed to like using Bitcoin. I think that's what his argument was.
Yeah, I think in general you don't know you need Bitcoin until it's too late.
Right.
So I've been fortunate enough to meet all kinds of people from all kinds of walks of life, and the pressures that almost everybody has, perpetuated by the World Bank, IMF, what have you, are way different than the pressures we have here. So, perfect example, a couple years ago, the 1,000 rupee note in India got made obsolete. They gave you a small window to like come redeem them, but a lot of people in most Asian countries hoard cash, like crazy amounts of cash. They don't use bank accounts, and so the 1,000 rupee note going bye-bye, like within a span of like 10 days, is it's a super synthetic way to curtail your inflation. You just nuked all 1,000 rupee notes.
Wow.
And so I had friends who were like, I got a 1,000 rupee note for a birthday. I literally nothing now.
Yeah.
Those are the people who instantly understand.
Yeah.
Sorry for boring you.
No, I'm trying to push this next meeting so I can stay.
Push it.
Give me a sec.
You just tell them, do you know who I'm on with?
I know
right now?
do you know this guy was retweeted by Elon Musk.
Listen, I'm
What?
a
He's a-
social
wait,
media
What's
icon.
the
He is
story here?
boys with Elon Musk now.
What was
they are
the-
best friends.
Push your meetings, and
Yeah,
we'll talk.
okay.
Yeah, this is serious stuff, man. This is a major celebrity we got in here. It's big time, man.
Dude, it's so funny. Michael from Lancium, he saw me at the Austin conference. He didn't say anything to me. He goes, "Man, how does it feel to fly so high?"
Dude, I looked it up before we got in here. 522,000 likes this dude got on
Damn,
one tweet.
dude.
Listen, if
You're
you need a content creator for Digital Wildcat, dude, I'm your guy.
I'm
right?
not worthy.
That's such a random story. So the Reddit video player is atrocious. It's so bad. And I saw a clip that I really wanted to watch, but it just like wouldn't load. So I ripped it from Reddit and I posted it on Twitter so I could watch it. And it was like an art installation of a French guy walking up the stairs and falling off into a trampoline. Anyway, and I was like, oh, cool. And I woke up the next morning and Elon had like liked it and commented, and then like it just exploded. And it's got like 40 million views. The guy who originally took the video like DM me, he's like, how dare you steal my content? And I was
Are
like,
you
it's
serious?
not like that, bro. I will give you credit. So like
Yeah.
I tagged him as like the first reply on it. And it was just like, it just popped off. So I think
Was it just
like,
the content or was it commentary on the content?
I literally put, this is some real life stuff, and then the name of the art install. And that was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
I saw that video. It's probably because of you.
Absolutely. If it was on Twitter, it's probably from that. So it's, listen, me and Elon are homies
Yeah,
now.
they're boys now,
okay.
man.
So
Shit. Can
Do you
we
need-
get Elon in power?
Yeah, yeah.
done.
You've got it.
Done.
That's
He's
it.
boys with Dave
Elon-
Chappelle, so we need Dave Chappelle.
Yes, we
too.
need Dave Chappelle.
Actually,
and then,
Chuck knows Dave Chappelle.
and Joe Rogan. Oh yeah, Chuck doesn't. know
Listen, if we're
Chappelle.
getting Joe Rogan, we might as well get Kanye too. We'll just make it a whole fest.
Whoa.
That's fine.
Kanye's off the table right now.
He might be untouchable right
Yeah.
now.
Dude,
yeah.
it's such a weird thing. Like, I have a pair of Yeezy shoes, and I'm like, is it okay to wear these anymore? I don't
No.
know.
Just
You're
tell
gonna get
everybody they're the
canceled,
Walmart
dude.
version.
No, Walmart
They're the
brand.
Walmart version.
brand.
Yeah.
They're made by small Chinese hands, not by a racist hands.
Right.
Yeah. Way different.
Oh, I'm nervous. I'm nervous.
Like,
for this guy.
like Dave Chappelle said, there's always two words you never use: the Jews.
Yeah. Yes. Those don't go together. Those don't go together.
Oh,
But yeah.
man.
Okay, we can edit these if we need to. So don't.
I know.
I think
it's-
we're- I think
I
we're
feel
the-
like
we're
we
the
live in a
good so far.
simulation at this point, dude. Like, if somebody would have told you that, like, 50 years ago, that we would be sucking dinosaur bones out of the ground and mining space money while people
Right.
like had a mental meltdown about what other people said, like you'd be
Dude.
like, dude, that's a video game.
Yeah,
We
it
live
sounds-
in a video game.
Oh,
It's
dude,
amazing.
Our life right now is like it's a movie, man. This whole thing is it feels so crazy.
Yeah.
That's what led me get into Bitcoin.
Dude,
was
Oh,
like
yeah.
looking at the
Idiocracy's
world.
coming true.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
With
Yes.
ChatGPT now,
Welcome to Costco.
we're like,
I
dude,
love you.
we are automating everything that we do.
It's my favorite part in the movie.
Like,
Hi,
dude,
welcome
we're
to
not gonna have to think anymore.
I love it.
At
Not
all.
at all.
Dude,
Not at all.
ChatGPT literally coded part of my Twitter bot. Not even kidding.
What? Who? What?
ChatGPT. Have you not heard about this? Jake,
Oh wait.
school him.
Yes, I
Get
did
in.
hear about this. Okay.
ChatGPT, built by OpenAI. Elon's actually one of the investors or founders or some shit like that. But they got to 1 million users within 5 days. And you stack that against every other social platform, it's like,
And Facebook was like 8 months or
dude,
something.
it's crazy. I
5
mean,
days.
yes,
Twitter was
within
like
5
months.
days. Get this. So Julie was playing with it. She had it pulled up on her computer. She was like, Jake, you're never going to believe this. And I was like, what did you ask it to do? She said, I want to, what I asked her to do was to write a script for a scene from Seinfeld where Kramer comes in talking to Jerry about Bitcoin mining.
Shut up.
Include audience laughter, include like frequent jokes. Boom. Full script. Kramer comes in talking about digital money, and Jerry's like, "Nah, I don't know, man. It sounds like a scam."
Are you
Dude,
serious?
it made sense.
That's incredible.
Then we did a Friends scene based on something with like with Ross being on a drilling rig for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
yes.
And you could just see the entire scene come to life. Like,
Dude,
how the
I'm
hell does
wanting to
ChatGPT
abuse
know
this thing.
Dude,
Golly,
it
are
can
you
do all
serious?
kinds of stuff. It can do code for you.
Man,
It can do
homework assignments. My daughter's
Dude,
gonna freaking
I'm not
be
kidding.
all over
It
this.
can do anything. It's incredible. It's not always great at
Yeah.
everything, but there are very specific things. It can do image manipulation, all kinds of stuff.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Dude, people are saying that this is the demise. Like, if there's anything that could kill Google, like this
This
is
is
it.
it.
Because it's not, now you're not just querying results. It is literally giving you the answers and creating things.
Mhm.
Man, it's
On
kind
your
of
behalf.
scary though, too.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Because like that's
but
gonna
it's
dumb
also
people
so
down
cool at
even
the same
more.
time. But what are the implications
Right.
5 years, 10 years
Yeah.
from now?
Yeah.
I mean, we're already thinking about 1 million things that we can automate. Things that
Dude.
are extremely tedious.
You guys should make
I-
some content for DW
Based
that
off of
is
that.
around ChatGPT, like origination. That would be.
We should do
freaking
some
awesome.
episodes.
There's already startups and stuff in the space that are like planning on building that into their software, like
Dude.
making it part of.
Oh yeah.
I just
the
worry that
workflow,
like we're all going to be idiocracy. We're going to be really dumb. Like people are. I mean, there's an aspect to like writing things out that is like creativity that kind of helps your brain, in my opinion. And I'm not a scientist or anything, but it's just like, holy shit, man. I mean, I'm going to abuse that thing. I can already tell you.
Absolutely. Dude, I saw somebody. Here's a good
Yeah.
one for you. You'll love this.
I wonder if we can write
It
legal
wrote
contracts.
a lease agreement. I'm not kidding.
Oh,
Dude, it wrote a triple net lease agreement, net 30 payment terms. Like he said,
Dude,
I
you're
need
fucking out of
You're
a
out
job.
of a job.
I know
dude.
this
Don't
is
look
killing
at
my
us.
career.
You're out of a job.
Holy
mister.
shit.
It was awesome.
Hey, you still need a lawyer to look at it.
By the hour.
You do.
On retainer, thank you.
Yeah, they're clients too. So. Yeah, I need to get Rhodium signed up. What are we doing?
Hey, listen, I'll tell you what I tell everybody. If it's free, it's for me. All right?
I like it. I knew Marshall would be perfect.
Just as like
Come
you're
on.
just like, how do I use ChatGPT to put together all
Right,
of my
right.
all of my client work from now on?
That's man. I will review it. I promise.
Automate your life away, man.
But that's seriously, that's what is
Absolutely.
happening. Like to so
Absolutely.
many different things. I saw that yesterday, actually. Like now that you say that, something Elon was talking about how scary good it is, and
So that's GPT. That's based on a product from OpenAI called GPT-3. GPT-4 is in beta, and it is.
What's the difference?
Okay, so
Yeah.
I saw it illustrated as
they cook for you.
a metric of like a picture metric. So if GPT-3 is one single line, GPT-4 is a whole circle. So if you take that line and fill it in
God.
with that much more,
It's
they've
scary.
ingested the entire internet and trained this model on the entirety of.
How long does it
everything.
take to build something like that?
You don't build it. You use a neural net to build it.
See, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated. So we've been using before ChatGPT. We've been using GPT-3 AI copywriters.
Oh, nice.
Think about how much copy we have to write.
Oh,
for
yeah.
everything that we post, right?
Insane.
It gets so redundant, and so you think about all the websites and landing pages and stuff. So we've been using Copy.ai, and there's a couple other ones that are like multi-billion-dollar valuations
Nice.
now. But like they have like a million use cases, and they're always creating new ones. And for the most part,
They're
it
pretty good.
usually lands like where you need it to, and then you're like, I like this. It's almost there, and you just do like regenerate. Or you change a few words and then you're there. Like, and it's so much better. And so like, part of me is like, yeah, I want to study the art of copywriting because I think it's an extremely valuable skill to be a writer, to be able to like articulate things. Probably translates here too. Other part is like, well, fuck it. Like the internet's way better at this than I am. So like,
I don't
I
blame
don't know where.
anybody.
I don't know where do I
Have
land?
you
Do I just
seen
take
the
that
movie,
energy and
the movie part of GPT? There's a demo for GPT-4, I think.
I haven't
Like
seen
it's
it, no.
putting movies together.
You tell it the script, it will animate the movie for
Good
you.
Lord.
And the beta is only like a 2-minute clip. Dude, it did a motion picture 2-minute clip that I saw that you
was
would
it
not
incredible?
Oh, now it's coming for our
Incredible.
jobs.
I know
Great.
you guys are screwed
Great.
too.
And it showed you the script, the input prompt.
yeah.
And it was like, it basically took a script that you would generate from ChatGPT, shoved it into this thing, and it made a 2-minute video.
Great, man. That's freaking nuts.
Yeah. So
Can you imagine?
What a
like, if-
world.
I know. Like
that's
the
what I'm saying.
stuff
We're
that,
living
like,
in the Terminator.
yeah, it feels like it.
Dude, in high school, I had a Nokia phone with like Snake on it. Like, and I had to text something, I had to
T9 for the
press it.
win?
Yeah,
Oh,
T9.
dude.
I didn't. I'm old, but I didn't get a cell phone until I was like a junior in college. So, I mean, I feel like the old person that like saw a TV invented, cars become common, and like then has a cell phone by the time they die. This is all happening so freaking fast.
Dude, so much happened like in my, I think of like my great grandparents,
Yeah.
like in their lifetime of like going from being like, you have like World War I, World
Yeah,
War II,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
They got
like
real
Vietnam,
problems.
the Great Depression, like, and then you see cars develop, and then you see like,
Right.
houses become. My grandma was telling me she bought her house for like $9,000 back in like the 50s, and I was like, must be nice, Grandma.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
I made
She's like,
$200
"Yeah,
a
like,
year."
I made $250 at like
Yeah.
a year or some shit,
Yeah.
right?
And their interest rate was like 20%.
Yeah, so they've seen everything just skyrocket. They've seen the internet come along. They've seen going from records to to
CDs.
tapes to
Yeah.
CD. Now my kids don't even know what a CD is. They saw one the other day and they
man.
were like, "What is this?"
Here's
It's a
my best
Frisbee.
thing to do to young kids. If you say, "Can you pretend like you're going to answer the phone?" They don't do this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They go,
This.
this,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, that's true. And I had we were in Missouri last week, and I had my son with me.
Do you call it Missouri or Missouri?
I'm Missouri, man. We're from that side,
I
Missouri.
see.
There
The
is a
fancy
side
side of the
that is
tracks.
Missouri. Yeah, this is a high class side. My name is actually Ballard, not Ballard, but joking. It's actually Ballard. But yeah, I had him messing with a rotary phone. He and like trying to dial. Dude, he
Blew
had
his
no
brains
idea.
out, huh?
He had no idea. He's like pushing the button. I'm like, dude, no, you got to spin the dial,
Spin it to
bro.
win it, baby.
Yeah.
Dude, my kids know how to operate. I mean, my youngest is 2, and he knows his way around a phone and a tablet, and like can turn the volume down, can like change the settings. Like
That's incredible.
he can do that better than he can even talk.
Yeah, no, it's
That's
freaking
crazy.
weird, man. It's so weird.
I don't have kids, but I've had one of my nephews when he was super young, my sister's kid. He was like super proud that he knew his my sister's phone password, and he's like, "Check this out, I can unlock it." And I was like, "How? You're like 3.
Yeah.
How?"
Oh man, I know. My son actually told me the other day. We're driving, and the time limit went off on the phone because we got him kind of locked up. And I looked at him because I could see him like
He gave
glance
you
up at me, and he goes, "Dad, don't tell Mom. I know the password. I know the password to fix the time limit." And I was like, "All right, dude. I won't tell nobody."
Just
But
let it rip.
What's even
dude.
worse
Sorry,
is
I'm-
that my phone recognizes my kids as me, and they can just unlock it with their face.
Oh,
are you serious?
Yeah, I shit you not.
That's super weird.
I'm like, how did you get in here? You're like, you didn't know.
he's
the
like, "I just
passcode."
looked at it,
I
man."
just looked at it, unlocked.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's crazy, actually. Man.
What you don't know is he went in, reprogrammed
Reprogrammed,
it
yeah,
to
she
just
scanned
take
his
Yeah,
face.
probably did. He
Absolutely.
probably did.
Wouldn't surprise me.
That's hilarious. He probably
surprise me.
did.
Yeah.
You probably did. Well, dude, I mean, I don't know. I've enjoyed this.
Hey, SBF.
oh yeah, let's talk
that
about
real quick.
SBF.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the juicy
Yeah,
stuff.
well,
So
I think
I don't know
we
when
did
this
talk
is
about
going
it
to come
before.
out. We're probably like a few weeks late, but let's just talk. Literally, as of last night, he got arrested in the Bahamas. He's looking at like 111, 115 years, according to the charges that were
Right.
put against him by the United States. Does anything actually come of this? Obviously, he's been on his little press tour of like, it was totally planned. He wants to make
Cannot
himself
believe.
look extremely incompetent. And now as more stuff is coming out, like they had a whole Slack chat. I don't know if it was on Slack or Telegram, whatever, called wire fraud. was just-
oh,
Oh
It was
my
just called
gosh.
wire fraud.
Are you serious?
Yes. So they were just not
What a
even.
goon.
Yeah, not. I mean, I think it's like I was listening to the All In podcast with Chamath and Jason and a bunch
Yeah,
of those other guys the other day, and they were talking about it. And it's like I have to agree that this is like his defense is telling him, "Hey, go make yourself look as stupid as possible."
What's really bad though
but it's
is that,
totally been planned.
well, if that's your legal strategy, like you're
You need
fucked.
new lawyers.
You know what I mean? Well,
Yeah.
and like it's that bad
Well-
that your whole strategy is, dude, just go try
I'm
to
just
look
gonna
as
play
dumb
insane.
as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was when I was seeing him do these interviews.
Yeah, you're like, what?
I'm
are
like,
you
what are you doing,
doing?
dude? There is no. I cannot imagine what his attorneys are thinking, but
I think the so when he first came to the scene, right, in like
Mhm.
2017, 2018, people were like, "Oh my God, this kid's amazing!" Blah blah blah. He made $22 billion, arbing the kimchi premium, all this stuff.
God, I hate that founder worship stuff.
Oh,
I
I
hate
know,
it.
I
because
know.
every time
It's
you do,
ridiculous.
it ends up being a Theranos. It
yeah,
ends up
That's
being
right.
yeah.
So
Somebody's a
the
total
best
fraud.
part about Bitcoin, it is
Exposes you.
exceedingly good at murdering heroes.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael Saylor slapped a few times.
Mm.
He is now like stopped repping like the mining council and a bunch of
Mhm.
other stuff because it bit him in the ass. Same with this. But the problem with SBF is he was so prolific at giving so many people so much cheap money of
Right.
assumingly customer funds that like it has permeated the industry to a point that no other has. Like
Mhm.
they gave some of my friends money for their mining ops, right? Like
Right.
they gave Bloomberg did a story. They gave Genesis Mining like $1.1 billion,
Yeah.
of probably customer funds. Genesis Digital Assets are premium Bitcoin miners. Been doing it a
Mhm.
long ass time, almost as long as me, and it sucks to see like good, fair operators who have been in the space for a long time get tied up in that because it's incredibly
Yeah.
hard to DD where the money comes from.
Right.
So it's just like this is something that's slightly more nuanced, but the adage is if you're a hero in Bitcoin, you will be crucified.
Mhm.
Period.
I think what's
What-
crazy is just so incestuous. You see, like I've seen a couple different infographics of like money flew from here to here
Yeah.
to here to here, back to where it started.
just a giant
yeah,
circle jerk.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like it makes no sense. And now you're seeing, obviously, with the fall of FTX, I'm seeing it, talking to a lot of people, especially gearing up for Empower, dude. I mean, a lot of people are fucking hurting.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, I tell anybody, look, if you're new this is a cheap lesson.
Yeah.
Like if you're fairly new to the space, let's say you got in 2020, 2021 and you got rinsed, it hurts, but use it as a lesson to teach yourself what the core tenet of Bitcoin at scale is about. It is about self-sovereignty. It is about self-custody. If you're old and you got rinsed, you fucking deserved it.
What do you think too? This ties to it with Binance and what they're going through right now. People are taking off.
Paused withdrawals last night.
Yeah.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they had to. They were losing 1.1 billion a day.
They were getting
withdrawals.
Last time I checked, it was like 2,000 Bitcoin an hour
being
withdrawn. They paused them. I didn't know that.
That's the question I was going to ask you is like, so at what level, and actually me and Leachman were talking about this yesterday, at what point do we realize like getting Bitcoin, actual Bitcoin, is harder than what we think?
Absolutely.
And so at some point, do you think there'll be some type of price reaction the other way? Because it's like, holy shit, this is a lot. There is not as many Bitcoin floating around as what people try to pretend.
The way I always kind of equate that two things. The narrative of Bitcoin has changed and the supply is not what you think.
Right.
And those are commingled. So in the early days, Bitcoin was transactional, right? Like that's a big reason why I was into it. It's like, let me send you stuff, let me gift you stuff. Like I want to spend the nerd money to see how it works, right? I've gifted away millions of dollars in Bitcoin at this point, but that was the use case back then. Now the narrative is more of a store of value, digital gold, this kind of stuff. But because the old days, there weren't as many checks and balances. I mean, I personally sent Bitcoin to addresses that are not validated because validating addresses wasn't a thing till like 2014 or 15. So the amount of Bitcoin that will ever be in existence is much less than 21 million. Maybe it's 17, 18, 19 million Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And those, I mean, it is just getting more and more. I oftentimes in times like this watch The Big Short, the movie.
Right.
Because when the line where he says, let's just take 50 million in credit default swaps. How much money in CDOs are betting on that? And he says, oh, I don't know, something like 2 billion. And you're like, the amount of paper assets in the system and the traditional legacy finance market right now is insane. The derivatives market is like a can of worms that you can't put that devil back in the closet. And Bitcoin is becoming that way, but it's always too good to see this grand rinsing to really remind people, not your keys, not your cheese.
Yeah. Seriously, because like when I look at it, they're trying to run these exchanges and all that, and you know, basically giving you these insane interest rates for holding your assets. And they treat it almost like a bank does. Like, okay, we're holding this. Well, banks have the protection of FDIC and all that, and the restrictions on how much you can pull out. We don't have that same protection here, and Bitcoin does not. It doesn't fit that kind of mold that like the fiat system does. And that it will always rip your face off. It's just going to. You can't print a bunch of Bitcoin. You just can't. And like you can here.
It's quicker to get caught up, to get caught in the act with your pants down.
Right.
Because what exchanges, I met a lot of exchange owners. I've met them over the years. I built matching engines. I know how it works. And what most exchanges don't know is they're not actually exchanges in the traditional sense. An exchange is a place where a designated market maker can participate. So like if you want to go trade on Bats Global or an IC, you cannot. You have to go through a broker, and that broker goes through a designated market maker. And that designated market places orders on behalf of themselves and their broker partners. But what Bitcoin exchanges are an exchange, a brokerage, a Forex shop, and a futures shop, all combined with no closing and no settlement.
Yeah, dude, it's a disaster.
It is a disaster of people who think they understand what they are and they're not. They're just all commingled into a confluence of like paper trades. Yeah. But when the withdrawals come, that's how you get fucked.
And you have to have it.
Absolutely.
Like, you have to have it, and they don't. And Binance, I mean, I think this is going to be a domino effect on everything, which I used to, like my first bust or bear cycle back, you know, the first one I really experienced, like 2018, it hurt. It was like, holy shit, this sucks.
Did you think it was over?
Oh, yeah, of course. I was like, this is the worst. I mean, I screwed it all up. You know, should have sold this, should have sold that. Now I managed through that, right? And this one, though, I feel so different. I'm rooting for some of this stuff to happen, not because I want it to hurt like the everyday people. Obviously, I don't. And I hate that that's happening. But these high level, especially now, like we had Mount Gox before. Like, this stuff has happened before. This is obviously the biggest one with FTX, but
There's just more money in the system.
There's more money
It's
in
the
it.
same.
It's more common. It's more
Yeah.
adopted. It's like more acceptable.
Mhm.
But you need this rinsing out to
Absolutely.
teach people. It's the only way. Like, you're going to get burned sometimes. People are going to lose out. It's happening with every single like economic change or like big advance in innovation and all that throughout history. Like, I'm sure that these type of things happen. You have busts all the time on different
So, I mean,
things.
same thing happened in shale.
Right.
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 I mean, we
Exact
torched.
same
We
thing.
That's the
torched
unique thing with shale, man.
Mhm.
$200 billion in capital gone, but it's really the cost. I mean, you look at any investors kind of, they play on the power law, right? They need to have one investment that makes up for 9 losses, right?
Right.
Out of 10.
Yeah.
And that's just the cost of innovation.
Who is they?
That's cost the VCs.
Uh-huh.
VCs, have one banger that makes
Yep.
up for all the other ones that you're in. So it's just it was no different with shale, and it's gonna be no
Yeah.
different on the Bitcoin side.
My interesting bringing up shale, that I wonder why more operators are not co-locating miners. And that is a question for you, because I want to know. I've just been recently learning more about like flaring and operation and all that stuff. It seems like they really understand a commodities production business, which
Mhm.
Bitcoin mining is, and they have ways to offtake additional gas, whatever. Why aren't more people doing it?
You go ahead and take it, but
What's the difference?
Here's-
What
here's-
nuance?
here's
I don't
my-
understand.
Here's my take, and I think it's also analogous to something that I used to say, coming from the technology side of this business, is that now knowing the people that are in it, I used to fault people for like, hey, why don't you have like better software systems and it, more of a tech kind of back office to the E&P and more technology and stuff like that, especially since I've lived it. But here's the thing. You can't fault them for not knowing what they don't know.
Right.
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 You can fault them for maybe being a little bit not as curious as they should be about certain
Mhm.
things. But I think that Empower's shown that there's a ton of people are really curious.
Mhm.
It's still a very small percentage of the market
Really?
overall, but they just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And they're just not educated on it. And what oilmen are good at doing is pulling oil and gas out of the ground.
Right.
But they're
And to them,
also
it's like-
even better than riding a bull and bust cycle.
They are.
Oh, yeah,
That's
no, yeah.
the critical piece that almost no other business knows. If you
Mhm.
do commodities production, you understand commodity price control, and the cheaper you can suck that barrel of oil out for, the longer you
Mhm.
can live. The people have been doing it a long time. They know that, and it's
Yeah.
the same in Bitcoin mining.
That's what we
Dude,
talked
I-
about in episode 1 with,
yeah,
with Gideon
yeah.
and Griffin.
We talk about it all the time. Like, and that's what got me into it,
Mhm.
into the space, was like, this is the same business. It's
Yeah.
the same exact business. But they are coming around. It's just going to take time. And like
Mhm.
Jake said, they don't know. They
They
are
just
so
don't know.
focused on their, technical discipline and their business and getting oil out of the ground and getting it to market.
Are there operators who have survived multiple bull and
Oh,
bust in
yeah.
oil?
100%.
They're like
Yeah.
real pristine.
Oh, yeah.
But they
Yeah,
also
tons,
have the
tons.
big difference is that they also have hedging markets that
Oh,
that we don't. You know what I
see.
mean? And so that's one area too that I think has to develop on the
Uh-huh.
Bitcoin side, is like a hash rate market, something like
Mhm.
that, where I can hedge my production.
Like Luxor's India,
Right,
that kind
like
of stuff.
something
yeah.
like that. Now, I think there needs to be a much more robust one, and then you're
Sure.
also, for the buyers, they're going to have a use case for why
Uh-huh.
they're buying this hash rate,
Uh-huh.
right? But obviously, it's to get exposure to the commodity markets.
Mhm,
So it's going to take time. That will happen. All this stuff will happen.
mhm.
But it's honestly, that's why we have the show, is like, because most of your listeners are related to energy markets, right, or energy industries, and so
Yeah, what
that's
I'd love to
where we
see is
wanna
like
educate 'em.
some real gangster operators who have
Mhm.
done a bus cycle 3 or
Mhm.
4 times, to like, if they just hear a presentation,
Right.
they should be like, oh,
Yeah.
this is easy.
So here's
Dude,
the
like,
thing.
I'm
It's
talking
like
to companies
you've-
every day.
Nice.
You've seen
That's
it.
good.
Let me
That's
know if you're
encouraging.
seeing the same thing with the companies you're talking about. We don't have to call anybody out specifically, but I think it's particularly challenging for public E&Ps to even play around with Bitcoin
Oh,
mining.
there's public ones. I didn't.
Yeah,
know. I don't know.
are.
any-
Here's, and I've said this for years. I've said this for like
Accounting
6 years.
side.
I think oil and gas companies should not be public. I think what Harold Hamm just did with Continental Resources, taking
Right.
it private, is the best thing that could ever have been done for that
How big
company.
was that deal?
Really big.
Yeah, it's a
but he
big
already owns 76% of
Oh,
the
okay.
company.
Mhm.
And so he just took the remaining bit private.
Uh-huh.
It's been public for probably 20, 30
A while,
years.
yeah.
Wow.
But he is the
That dude
kind of the
sounds
rich,
like a
No,
gangster.
he's
he
the
is a
richest oil
gangster.
man like
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
there that's alive currently.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, you just have that external pressure from the investors. They don't understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, fast forward, or I guess rewind a little bit back to ExxonMobil
Mhm.
with somebody who owned 0.02% of the company was able to do a proxy battle, take a board seat with Exxon.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
caused a lot of issues
Mhm.
internally.
Speaking of Exxon, how about Shell selling off their Permian business like 2 months before oil ripped? That's gonna
yeah.
dude. Conoco was cleaning up on
they
that.
got it
one.
at what, a $45 valuation.
Yeah, dude.
Though I'll tell you though, I think there's going to be a day not too far away where I think oil and gas stocks are better exposure to Bitcoin than mining stocks, like a safer bet. And mainly because oil and gas companies, in addition to being used to the commodity cycles, they have diverse revenue streams and they can hedge. And so if they start really bringing Bitcoin into their portfolio and using mining as another option to generate
do you
revenue.
recommend they hold it?
Well, that's part of the problem is the account. Look at what MicroStrategy was dealing with, right? And all the gap accounting and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So like that's part of the issue for a lot of them is they need clarity on the accounting side, regulatory side. And that's why like we may disagree on this, but I think it's inevitable that regulation's coming for Bitcoin and SEC regulations and IRS tax treatment. Like those things have to get worked out before they'll dive in and be like, you know what?
I think all of those are definitely concerns for operators. I think another thing is also thinking about most of the time you don't own 100% of the well yourself. You have non-op working interest, you have overriding royalties, right? And then that splits into kind of your overall net revenue interest. And so you start to have to think, like, especially if you're taking like gas, like let's just say that you're using the gas, right? Do you owe any sort of royalties based on?
I talked to some royalty owners yesterday about this, and they were like they're hardcore Bitcoiners, and they're like, dude, we can't make that choice. We have to like talk to the operator, and it's got to be like a joint discussion. And I was like, and then that's why I prompted the question. I was
make what choice
about the gas? Because I called a bunch of royalty owners and that own like the entire place, and I was like, why can't you just like do a deal? Like you want Bitcoin, I make Bitcoin, let's just do it. Yeah, it's definitely not that easy.
No, some can take gas in kind, and they could do that, right? Right. And they could do that. It's more of an issue than what it's like. Yeah, you have the legal right to do it. It's a lot more complicated to actually execute on it, but that is a possibility. And I think that's going to end up being something that happens as well.
The people who figure it out first, are going to destroy.
As I'm sitting here thinking about it, it's just like there's no clear playbook. Like I think Empower was great to kind of close some gaps, but there hasn't been like maybe we need to put together an ebook.
We should.
We should write up a book.
Let's make a deck or something, and just give it to all of them. Be like, hey, y'all trying to get down or what?
Yeah.
All right. We'll put this on the to-do list.
Let's go to
crowdsource this. All right, cool.
It could be sick because to me, it just doesn't make sense why. Listen, I understand you don't know what you don't know. I come from a farming background. Like those guys, they're like, what is that new shiny thing? If it ain't a tractor, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Like I get it. But at the same time, when Ricky Bobby down the way has a new thing that just saved him a ton of money and time, he's buying it.
Right.
And if he can't buy it, he's going to do a co-op and they're going to buy it together.
I honestly think a big part too, like the royalty owners and all them, I think it'll be easier. It's the operators, and they already deal with ESG rhetoric that attacks them on a constant basis. And then when you got the same folks that are attacking them over oil and gas activities, you throw in Bitcoin mining on top of it. It's just another like target that they feel like they're probably putting on themselves. And so that's part of the education process too. I think all this stuff goes in and all ties together. And like
what the royalty guys were saying, they were like, if you just say that you're going to save them money so that they don't have to deal with the flaring stuff, they don't have to pay the royalties for the flaring stuff. Like that's an easier path to go.
That it is. That's true. Like it's easier to just pitch it as infrastructure, power generation, and offtake of gas, getting rid of your flare. That helps you hit your ESG metrics. And so, but then they also get in the issue where, are you a reliable party? Do I want you on my pad taking gas and setting up this operation? They don't know anything about it. Freaks them out. And then how many of these groups that are out contacting them have actually done any of this?
Right.
A lot of them haven't done anything.
Well, now's a good time because all the jokers who were huffing and puffing in the bull run are now completely gone.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's true. And you got the off-grid guys, you got, Crusoe, Giga, those guys that are like solid.
Absolutely.
Standard Bitcoin. That's a new one. I'm getting Tom and Marty. We can get them on here. Yeah.
I got a bone to pick with Tom. I'd love to be
Tom's
on
a boy, man.
Tom been chirping me on Twitter. Tom, when you hear this, we need to do a cast together.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna melt his face.
What happened? What's the beef with Tom?
I
here?
know what's going on.
Tom
here?
just likes to make cheeky comments. I just love it.
All right.
We like to chirp each other on Twitter.
Oh, I love Tom.
That's great. He's
I
the
love
man.
you too, Marshall.
Good.
And
We can just.
I love Marty too. We need to have a big old one with like Barber, you, Marty,
yeah, dude.
Tom.
I think Barber just did one with Peter McCormack too.
Yeah,
yeah.
He did. Yeah, they're kind of getting their name out. I like the name Standard Bitcoin too.
That's
They're an oil and gas company.
That's the
So,
perfect name. Dude.
yeah,
That's awesome.
They're actually like buying up their own production and doing.
Oh,
they're
are
doing
they?
it the right
Really?
way.
That was
yeah.
my question too. It's
I didn't
like,
know that.
why can't people? They buy the land and mineral rights,
Mhm.
right? They own the hydrocarbons in the ground. Why can't you just like build a team to suck it out?
You
Is it
can
that
You
hard?
can't- Well, people.
I don't
We
know.
talked about
I'm
this
asking.
on the episode with.
come from somebody who's lost a lot of money.
Right.
It is harder.
Yeah.
It is harder than
Yeah.
it sounds.
So how
in theory,
did you lose money? If I can ask, be so bold.
our
as to ask
thesis,
you.
our thesis was wrong. So we didn't drill anything.
Okay.
Right.
Mhm.
We bought a small pad of assets across 3 different locations that had some potential upside, other zones that we can go complete. We only had X amount of dollars to do it, so we were kind of undercapitalized.
Mhm.
And then unforeseen circumstances. Our thesis was that oil wouldn't go below 50. We were like,
Yeah.
we're at the bottom. Like it's never,
Yeah.
it's not going to go lower than this.
So it
done
makes more
this.
sense to drill when it.
Well, no, it was like we're buying at 50. We're going to write it up to 100 or
Uh-huh.
whatever it is now. Well, that's not what happened. It went down to 27 and then went down to negative 35.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right. And then also just unforeseen circumstances of like historic rainfall in Tulsa.
Can you
Lease
not
roads washed
hold
out.
the oil and sell it later? I don't know how
you
any
can,
of this
Well,
works.
you
you
run
can,
out
but
of
then how do
storage,
you? But
too.
how do you pay your
Yeah,
expenses? How do you
Oh,
pay?
right. You
Yeah.
don't have enough
Yeah.
runway, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be selling it to
Mhm.
pay bills, but and storage on facilities can get expensive. You run out of it fairly quick.
Oh,
So
really?
it's
I
like,
mean, in theory, you can just get a shitload of tanks out there. If you
Yeah.
just keep stacking it. But how are you going to pay your bills?
yeah,
Right.
You know.
Just
Yeah.
keep nuking cash. Like
that's something I talk about with Bitcoin mining
Yeah.
is that you have basically unlimited storage,
Mm-hmm.
So-
So it's not.
Yeah. and you like in oil and gas with gas when you sell your gas, you're talking about a 90-day reconciliation period where
Really?
yeah, you don't get paid for that gas sales until 90 days later, 60 to 90 days.
Even they
Yes.
pick up your oil, it was like you get picked it up, and then I think it was like almost like 2 weeks later is when it
Right.
hit.
And
you
so
actually paid.
in this, it's like you get paid every day
Right.
for the production that you had that
Yep.
day. And you can hold it as much as you want for as long as you
It
want.
doesn't cost
And
you
oil
any
and
more to
gas
hold it.
companies can sell their gas. That's what I'm talking about, the diverse revenue streams.
Right.
They can continue to sell oil and gas and
Mhm.
hold Bitcoin as long as they want. It's an
It's another
ancillary
hedge.
benefit.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, oil and gas stocks eventually are going to be better exposure, safer, more stable exposure to Bitcoin than a mining company.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do think that'll be that way one day.
Do you buy into the? Maybe y'all buy into the thesis that over the next 10 years, Bitcoin miners become power companies.
Did you see that thing in Japan? Mario tweeted something about it
Yeah, I saw that
today.
today.
You
The
got him on the
utility
pod?
companies.
You got to get good.
Not yet.
on the
No,
pod,
yeah,
bro.
we're definitely gonna have him
Oh,
on here.
yeah.
Want to get him and like Lisa Huff on here.
I mean, I
together.
think that's what Max with Standard Power's doing.
Oh
right?
yeah,
yeah. I mean, they own the power and they are the miner. They're totally vertically
Mhm.
integrated.
So
in Ohio.
they own the land, they own the
Yeah.
mineral.
Mhm.
Well, they're
And they're-
doing
are they
on
popping the
grid
hole
stuff. They're
and
doing on
sucking it
grid.
out?
They're doing on grid.
Standard.
Standard
Mhm.
power. Mhm.
I want to know: is there anybody that is a small player that owns the mineral rights, owns the land, and drills and pulls it out and operates it themselves? Is there
I don't
anybody
want to.
like
I
that?
don't want to speak for Standard Bitcoin, which is different than Standard Power.
Yeah.
Standard
I'm-
Bitcoin, Tom and Marty. But that, from what I understand so far, that is what
That's
their goal is.
That's what
I think
they're
there's
Yeah.
a handful of other ones
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sure there are more that are doing
that I
some of
that I think
yeah.
I know of.
Yeah.
But I don't want to throw it out there.
Throw it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are people.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Because it's like we come from the oil and gas space
Yeah,
and we're
absolutely.
operators.
You don't
so-
think you can just like build a crack team, and just like get it?
Oh, you
get
could.
it done,
You could.
right?
The problem is capital, access
Yeah.
to capital too
Mhm.
right now. So,
I mean, even building a small team.
How much does it cost? I don't know.
oh, it's very capital intensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, be more specific. How much is something? I'll give you a number.
So I know what it costs.
I can't
To,
remember.
I know what it costs to build a Bitcoin mine per megawatt. So I
Mhm.
guess the question is,
You
if
can
it's-
you can drill a shallow vertical well for like $300,000-$400,000.
Oh yeah.
and what would
Yeah.
like a decent well produce?
Oh man.
Well, it's all relative.
That's
to-
totally
yeah.
relative to how much
let
you're.
me say, as far as what I want out of that is, see, I'm taking it from the other side, right?
Mhm.
What I want out of it is, I know for $1 million, give or take, I can put online, all in, inclusive of machines, 1 megawatt. So, question is, for $1 million, can I get 300 MCF forever?
PDP, you should be able to.
Yeah, PDP for
Yeah.
sure.
I don't know what that means.
That means
like
you're buying
producing.
existing
You're-
production.
yeah,
It's already online. You're buying
Legacy
a well.
production.
I'm asking, can I drill a well, sell the oil, and get sweet gas off of it at 300 MCF for $1 million? That's the question.
Drill. I mean,
Operate
it could always be a dry hole. You never know.
Yeah, it depends on where.
Yeah.
So you have that
Let's just
risk baked
assume-
in.
Let's just assume you don't. It's a good hole,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
For $1 million, does
In
more
theory,
money
yeah.
mean I can pull
in-
more?
In theory,
Yes. In theory,
yes,
yes.
but like you gotta. I mean, you
I
gotta
know the
find
risk
the
profile's
formation. You gotta,
different.
yeah, like
I know the risk profile is different,
Mhm.
but in theory, you should be able to pop a 300.
I don't want to say you should. This is me being a lawyer. You could. It
could.
depends. It depends.
But if I'm
There's-
doing it, I'm buying existing assets.
That's
I'm not
exactly.
gonna, I'm not
would-
going to take
They're
on the
already
risk.
declined. They're already flat.
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah.
because when
It's
I go drill a
consistent.
well, it's going to drop off.
So when
60%.
you buy one of these declined wells,
Mhm.
do you, when you buy a declined well, what are you buying?
You're buying the existing production and the wellbore.
You're buying interest in that well is what you're technically buying,
Mhm.
right? So you're buying it. You're taking over
What does that mean?
You're taking over
Like-
that lease.
Yeah. So you got a
Uh-huh.
lease,
So-
right?
But then I would have to, if I want to get everything, I then have to go to the royalty guys and buy the land and the rights.
well, if you wanted to take the
It's
royalty
easier
owners
just
out
to
of
pay
it,
them,
Right.
but yeah, it would be very expensive because you'd probably do it on
what, a
a
10X or something?
48 months of cash
4
flow,
years?
of
probably.
production. Yeah.
Yeah, to buy each one of them out, which is possible.
And if you're buying a legacy asset though, there's some really good legacy out. I'm looking at one right now, and it's like, I don't know. I think it's a 6th royalty on part of it and an 8th on the other.
I don't know what that means.
Well, it means like a 6th of my revenue generated from hydrocarbon sales goes to the royalty owners.
Okay.
And then
they get paid first before anybody.
right,
Mhm.
and you can have
So it's a revenue share then. It's not a profit share.
right,
No.
right.
It's revenue share.
Well, it depends on the lease. Depends on the
Okay.
lease. These legacy ones you can deduct cost out a lot. Yeah, for transportation things like that.
Man,
Also
I
depends
feel
on if
so
it's-
dark on this stuff. You guys are talking.
This is why you need an
different
oil and gas
language,
attorney,
See,
man.
the
That's
royalties aren't exposed to expenses. Non-operating interest is.
Right.
And so if you're on a lease, right, and you've already got, let's say, 2 wells and they want to punch a hole in another one, if you're bought into that lease, like you're on the hook for
Mhm.
part of the drilling expenses at your percentage of ownership.
Right.
So you own 1% of it and then they're going to cash call you.
Oh, I see.
And then if you don't participate, then you essentially forfeit.
You get a non-consent penalty,
Yeah.
which is basically you're going to be out of the well.
Well, you're prorated on
So
that
it's
30%
extremely
or whatever.
expensive.
like you have to
to
pay
just-
300. They have to recover 300%, and this depends on Joe. They'd
Uh-huh.
have to recover 300% of their cost that they covered for you before you get to come back into the well.
I see.
The shitty side of that is they're like, oh, this is going to be, let's just say like an unconventional well. Oh, it's going to be a $6 million well. And somebody fucks something up and it ends up being a $9 million well.
Right.
Like you're still
You're
on the hook.
with it.
Oof.
Yeah, and if you elected to participate,
Why is it so complicated?
because
Oh
they're
my
taking the risk.
God.
They're taking the risk to go out there and drill it. And so it's like you.
I equate it identically to Bitcoin mining.
It's dude. It's the
And
same
Bitcoin
business.
mining is not that convoluted when it comes to contracts.
Right.
It is.
But you
Work a deal with
you got
ERCOT.
to throw
We're
minerals
like
in though.
120 years of
Yeah.
contracts kind of being
Right.
It's not. Minerals are the Bitcoin in this situation.
Yeah, not necessarily, because you've, like you said, you've had 100+ years of like people carving this stuff up. So you get into a lease and you might have 1,000 different royalty owners,
especially
easily.
like in Ohio
or East Texas.
'Cause
Why
then,
does,
like-
that's
like
what I'm saying. Why does it
descendants-
have to be like that? Like,
Well-
let's just buy a plot and just do it.
Well, you'd have all those people had interest in those minerals.
There
from
are
families
places where
back-
you can go and buy and
oh yeah,
literally
fresh stuff.
yeah, you can own everything yourself. There are places, but if you're going into legacy places like you're talking about in Ohio,
Mhm.
mineral rights are something that's usually passed down within a state.
Yeah, I
it's
understand
it's
that.
mailbox money, right?
Yeah.
And then it gets split into 2 people, and then it gets split
Mhm.
into their families, and then
Mhm.
next thing you know, you're paying out 1,000 checks for a single well.
You're issuing 1,000 K1s.
And they're
Yeah.
like 80. No, they don't get K1s because they have a contractual interest with the company. They're
Uh-huh.
they don't have an equity interest in
I
that.
see.
They own the minerals, and they did a lease where they're like, hey, you drill it.
You take.
We
them
want
and give
a
us
6th of it. You'll get the rest of it though.
I see.
And so, but yeah, it's like it's passed down. You think like if it's surface, a lot of times they'll partition it off.
Yeah.
So like, okay, me and you are brothers. Well, that'd have been weird if we were brothers. But me and you are brothers. We get inherited this property. You want to sell it? I don't. Okay, let's partition it off. You take your half and you can do whatever you want with it. I'm taking my half. Minerals, it's like all undivided. Now you could partition it up based on the surface as well, but assuming it's all undivided, And it's just like, man, I could be writing 1,000 checks for 89 cents a piece.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Now, typically they're gonna have like a threshold before
Sure,
they
when you
send it,
pay
but-
out.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But it's a lot. It's just thousands or 100 years of freaking contracts and families, and some families have 8, 9
you ever
kids.
get jealous that
Oh yeah,
Texas
all
is
the time.
way better than Missouri at oil production?
Dude. Where I grew up in Missouri, I went back because my family owned some property. We're dairy farmers. And I went and looked kind
Tell
of
me
at
you
some
prospect
geological
something.
maps.
Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
we got like this dome, a salt dome or some shit that
Dude.
like, yeah, there's other things you could produce
Yeah.
out of it. But like from an oil and gas perspective, there's nothing. There's like, I think there's like 57 wells in like this 300-mile radius,
You're all like
which
right
is like,
there.
dude, they're not producing.
So we've
anything.
got 50 acres up in East Texas, and I mean it's right in the middle of fucking gas country.
Is it?
Nice.
And we don't own the mineral rights, but I've been thinking about starting to do a little bit of due
Let's
diligence.
raise
Yeah.
an
See-
SPV and get
see
it
if
Yeah,
done,
let's go
dude.
get it, man.
just poke some holes in the
Yeah.
ground and just
Yeah.
see, you know?
Heck yeah. What county?
Oh shit, I don't know. It's between Brownsboro and Chandler,
I don't know where they're
about
at.
20 miles from Athens.
I'd cut my teeth in Panola.
Oh, okay.
Shit, I don't
Pinola's-
even know where that's at.
Dude, Panola is like the hardest title in the world. It's freaking brutal. Yet people signing stuff with X's.
Yes,
Yeah. 20 kids.
Some good old
I'd
boys
would've-
down there now.
I had one, I looked at the lease and it was like, this lease was originally signed by Bertha McFadder, also known as like Sarah Janes. You know what I mean? It's like, what? How does Bertha McFadder, how is she also going by Sarah Janes or whatever? You know what I mean?
She signed it for her cousin.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
I'm like, wow, this
Yeah.
is. And then like so and so died in Mexico, and it's like, oh, it hasn't been found since. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
people
I've
wrote
heard
this up.
stories of people that have to get like a survey guy to come out and draw the boundaries
Yeah.
again. And I have a buddy that draws the
Uh-huh.
boundaries, and he's like, dude, I got one. It was like the demarcation line was a pile of rocks from 1890.
Right,
And I had to figure out where this pile of rocks is.
Yeah. It is. It's like, hey, the 5-inch diameter mesquite tree.
That's right. That is
Like,
now
dude,
a
what if that's like
20-foot
20 years
yeah.
old?
Yeah.
There's so many. It's interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's 1:30. I don't know if you'll have to take
All right, man. Wow, we got him for an hour and a half.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
He's
got
such a
me.
busy man. Elon's probably called you like 5
Dude,
times.
Yeah.
my phone's been buzzing off the hook.
I'm
all right?
sorry, Elon.
He's like, what do I do with Twitter?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an awesome podcast, man. This is
This
this
is fun, man.
this
Appreciate
is
it,
sick,
man.
dude.
We're gonna have you back multiple times.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is not like a one-time thing. It's
Please.
just like I want
I
everybody in
love
the
it.
community on.
Because
Yeah.
I live so far away and all.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Well, and there's only like 28 of us in the space. and
Literally.
everyone wants to
That's
talk
right.
to, so
That's right.
yeah,
We should
gotta
get
have you
one
do
with
it.
like Mario.
Oh yeah,
And Marty. Do a Triple M podcast.
Oh,
Mario,
yeah.
Marty, Marshall.
We should do that.
Ooh.
we should do that.
We can do that. We can.
Yeah.
Hey, we always add more.
Sick
mics.
studio
Yeah.
too. We'll get some
Yeah.
drinks poured.
We'll
next
actually get the
time.
drinks on. Yeah,
Oh, we would bring the Delta 8s back.
yeah,
We got
man.
pretty lit with the Giga guys.
By the end of
Drinking
it, I was
Delta
like, I
8s.
think we need to stop. I think we need to stop. I can't
Like, I don't know if
remember
I
what
can
you just
drive
said.
home.
Yeah, it was good though.
Oh, right
But
on. Cool.
Marshall, thanks for coming, man.
Guys, appreciate it,
Yeah,
Marsh.
dude.
Yeah, we're definitely doing it again.
Right on.
So
Hell
well
yeah.
done, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.